Hi guys, we are going to look at our last bit of information about the French and Indian War. Let's recap what we have learned so far. We have learned that after the French and Indian War, the countries that had claim to different parts of North America was changed in a major way. Britain now had claim over where the 13 original colonies were, west of the Appalachian Mountains, all the way into the middle of the North American continent. We also learned that Benjamin Franklin created a political cartoon of the snake that helped unite the colonies together. We learned that the Native Americans were on both sides of the war, basically. Many joined the French side because they were used to having trade relationships. Some joined the British colonies because they had relationships with the colonists. Now we're going to look at some other things. So we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but the country of Britain ended up having a lot of debt or money they owed because they had to buy a lot of things for the war. They had to buy weapons and food and shelter for soldiers and all kinds of stuff. Now, that debt became the source of major resentment or bad feelings between the American colonists and the leaders of Britain. So those leaders in Britain are just thinking about the colonists and they're just grumpy about all the debt and all the money they have to pay back because of these colonists. So these English leaders felt that they had protected the colonists through the war. They financed it, right? They paid for all of this stuff. They sent over lots of military. They protected them. And what the colonists did to help Britain in the war, they didn't think was very good. They thought it was unsatisfactory. Like they didn't help enough. Now, the English leaders also believed the colonists should help pay for the war. They benefited from the protection of Britain. They should be responsible for paying for that protection. I kind of asked you that question yesterday, right? So, a lot of the leaders in England believed that the colonies were super disorganized. They weren't together, they weren't united all the way yet. Each colony had their own way of living, their own rules, because remember, these colonists moved there for freedoms, right? So they weren't really looking to have a government control them. They wanted to live the way they wanted to live without someone telling them what to do. So, but Britain saw them as just being disorganized, and they thought that they needed a government or a central authority to help guide them. When leadership plans were started, so the people back in England were like, all right, we are going to continue to be in charge of you colonists, and we're going to give you some guidelines, some rules. The colonists now became very upset with Britain. They said, hey, we came here to claim land for Britain. We came here to practice the religion we want, to be able to farm the way we want, for all these opportunities. We don't need you telling us what to do. They felt that they should be able to govern themselves rather than to be told what to do from someone who lived a 3-month journey across the ocean. A lot of the colonists felt, hey, you guys have never been here before. Why should the people in England who've never set foot on North America be in charge of creating rules for people who live there? Remember when we talked about perspectives? So you see two different clashing perspectives here. The people in Britain think, hey, we helped you a lot, we should be in control. The people in the colonies don't feel like they should be in control. So the French and Indian War had shown the colonists the benefits of coming together or uniting. And they realized that they could join together against common foes or enemies. It was the French over the land, but their next enemy would be Britain itself. Now, the Native Americans in this situation were not very well taken care of, right? they were in the middle of all of this, and it was their land to begin with. So for these Native Americans that lived in the Ohio Valley, the third major party in the French and Indian War, the British victory, was a disaster for them. They continued to lose their land that they had lived on for many, many years before any colonists had arrived, not just British colonists, not just French colonists, before any explorers or colonists had landed or explored North America. These Native Americans had been living there for years. The Native American tribes allied or came together with the French, who were hated by the English. So now the English and the colonists have a bad feeling about the Native Americans. The Iroquois Confederacy, which is a group of different Iroquois, like smaller tribes, they are kind of joined together in a group. This confederacy came together and they allied themselves with Britain. So they were looked at a little bit better than the other Native American tribes, but only very slightly better. Now, the alliance between the Iroquois Confederacy and the British went away pretty fast, and the Iroquois Confederacy began to fall apart. The Iroquois continued to contest the English for control over the Ohio Valley for another 50 years, but they were never again in a position to deal with their white rivals in terms of military or political equality. So what that means is they continued to fight for their land in the Ohio Valley for quite some time after this, after the French and Indian War. But they never had enough power to defeat their enemy, which ultimately became the British. Even though they were partners in the French and Indian War, the Iroquois never really got any benefits from helping Britain, so they became an enemy. And they honestly had a lot of negative effects. They did end up losing their land. So this is the last part of American history that we are going to cover in 4th grade. So if we recapped all the things that we've learned in social studies, we have covered everything from original travelers coming over the Bering Land Bridge all the way through ancient civilizations of North and South America, to the Native American tribes that covered North America, to the colonists who came from Britain and France, to the beginning of the creation of the United States of America. That is a huge span of history. And as you get older, you will have other classes and other grades where you dive deeper into the things that we've learned. But you now have a really good understanding about how people came to live where we live. History is so awesome. You can see all these people who lived where you lived and have seen all these amazing things before you. It's so interesting to learn about. I love social studies. Now, when you move into 5th grade, you're going to pick up right where we left off after the French and Indian War. And you're going to learn about something called the Stamp Act, which is what set off the American Revolution. And it's amazing. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed social studies so far in 4th grade. I know that I did.